Oh, hello. Okay, we're live. Let's see.
I don't see it yet.
Switch back from that screen. Actually, don't switch over to that screen. That's gonna look really
I want to
wrong.
people.
Yeah, see? So amazing. You might want to switch back to that.
Hi everyone. Okay, so I have like weird angles because I'm using two devices. Hi Mark. I'm using two devices, so you get to see my side profile.
I have some very weird issues here. So
Are we doing it right
we're
now?
gonna wait for a couple. Yeah, we're gonna wait for a couple more minutes for people to get on. So yeah. Let's see.
So how is everyone doing? If you guys could, actually, it'd be really cool if you could just like quickly introduce yourself in the chat. Yeah, just talk about like why you're here, what you're trying to learn. That'd be fun.
Let it be light. Okay. And let me know if the keyboard sound is too loud from here, because yeah.
Hi Matthew. So for those of you who just got on, we are just doing some brief introductions in the live chat, and we will get started soon.
Hey, we have someone new from hackathon.
Oh, my hi Nathan. That's awesome. That's how I felt, I think, just a year ago. So, yeah.
All right, we're gonna wait until 8:05, and we're going to start at 8:05.
Okay.
Watching the YouTube live stream from the YouTube live stream. Hi, Pat. Ooh.
That's awesome, Angus. And
Hi, Angus.
Agreement. We have about a minute before we're gonna get started.
And also invite your friends.
Yeah, invite your friends. It'll be
If YouTube runs correctly, we're gonna be recorded, so it should be replayable. That's under the situation. This under the condition that YouTube runs correctly.
Okay, so by the way, if audio or video is bad, anything needs to be repeated, just send it in the live chat because my Wi-Fi isn't the best, but we've replaced it 7 times this year already, so we're just rolling with it at this point.
Yeah, and also I'm on my last couple of days of my Verizon service, so that's gonna be bad. All right, we are almost here. Actually, let me just do the quick introduction.
Christian says Mingjie, but spelled without an E.
Hey, so my name spells Mingjie with an E at the end. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm used to this thing. All right, it's 8:05. Let's get started. So, welcome everyone. I'm your host today. I'm Mingjie. I am basically coordinating this entire this live stream, and Megan's gonna talk. Megan's gonna do most of the talk during this an hour-long live stream, and hopefully we can teach you something and share our experiences and help you run your event better. So Megan, you want to switch to your slides?
Yeah. So this is exciting. And
we have 31 watching right now.
So exciting. I thought we were going to have like 9. Okay, now we only have 30. Okay, so we'll get started. And so the way this is going to work, actually, I think we'll discuss that as we get in, right, Mingjie?
Yeah.
I guess talk about it further in. Okay, cool. So, here's the beginning of Meginar 1.0. So, as y'all know, I'm Megan, and this webinar is named after me. So it's a Meginar. And 1.0 insinuates that we'll probably be continuing this series, especially if people find it helpful. So yeah, woohoo! Fun. So, who are we? Ooh, I get a little pointer. Ooh, okay. Sorry. So who are we? Well, I'm Megan Twee, and on Slack, I'm at Megan. So I'm a senior in high school from Mason, Ohio. It's specifically called Mason High School, William Mason High School, if you're interested. And I'm a club leader at Mason Hack Club. So Mason Hack Club is a chapter of Hack Club that we're all in. And it started in January of 2017, and now it's grown to be pretty awesome. Some of my co-leads are actually on the live stream right now, so thank you, Christian and Mark, and if anybody else is here. And just kind of a summary of what I've done and why I'm contributing to this Meginar today. I've raised over $24,000 in sponsorship for Hack Chicago as the head of finance and sponsorship. And I'm actually really proud of that because I had to do that pretty much all alone because Mingjie and Sean had to deal with all of the marketing and logistics. So we all bit off way more than probably we should have, but it ended up working out. So yeah, I did raise $24,000 in 3 months, pretty much by myself. And I raised $8,000 in sponsorship for Cincy Hacks, which was Cincinnati's first high school hackathon. By the way, I'm from the Cincinnati area, so that's why I'm involved in Cincy Hacks. And I've raised over $11,000 in funds from each year of a summer camp that we run called Hack Camp, where we just teach basic coding skills to 6th through 9th graders. And it's really exciting. And that has actually contributed to why Mason Hack Club has, I think, one of the largest budgets in the high school right now. We have around $20,000 in the bank. So that is exciting, and we love it. So next we have Mingjie.
All right, so I don't really have a lot of things to say about me because this is all about Megan's an hour. So I'm gonna just briefly introduce myself. I'm a junior at Thomas S. Wootton High School in Maryland, and I also run a club in my high school, obviously. So through the past year, I've been working with Hack Club on the social media and the community. So you guys probably know me from my community stuff, and I'm pretty active in Slack, so you can find me there if you have questions specifically for me. If you want to like get help on a club or on any of the system issues, whatever, find me. I can reach out to the Hack Club staff members if they're too busy. And so I have been working with Hack Chicago, with Megan, with Sean as head of marketing. I worked on emailing people back and forth, and I got complaints about I sent too many emails. I mean, that's part of my job. So yeah, and I also run Code ADC, which is a smaller scale of a hackathon. Smaller event, 50 people, 30 people, 50 people every season consistently, 3 times a year. And then also like somewhat experiencing that with raising money and reaching out to people and all that. So that's me. So continuing on, let's talk briefly about Hack Club, right? I know a lot of you probably heard about this event, heard about this live stream from Hack Club. So for those of you who are not that familiar with what Hack Club is, we are basically a international community network of high school coding clubs. We advocate for students to run their own clubs at their own schools, and with the help of our curriculum, HQ staff, and also our hacker community, which is really awesome. You guys should definitely join it. It's we try to make sure that everyone can run a great club at their schools. So if you haven't started your hack club yet, start one. Right? We're still running we're still on a rolling acceptance base for hack club applications. So if you submit one right now, hackclub.com/start, we'll review it in a couple of days, and you'll get your club started. Yay! All right, back to Megan.
Great, awesome. So now that we have the introductions over with, let's raise some money. Hopefully that's what we're all here for. And just to get started, before we get to that, just to get started, fundraising, just as a preface for this entire thing, fundraising is one of the hardest parts of running an event, but once you get going, it gets a lot easier. So it takes a lot of work at the beginning, and you're gonna feel like this is fruitless. I'm not making enough money. Like there's no point. But that's kind of how I felt with Hack Chicago and Cincy Hacks actually. But what starts happening is that when you get more sponsors want to be on board because all of them are like, whoa, this event is so cool. Like I should totally get involved because XYZ companies are involved. So just to preface this entire thing, I'm speaking from a position of acting like I kind of know everything about sponsorship when in reality I really don't. This is just kind of some tips and tricks that I've learned over the past few hackathons that I've run. And it's not easy and it will get easier, but in order to make it there, you have to put in a lot of work. But at the end of the day, it's totally worth it because you get to see an event play out. So that's just a preface to everything. So the first thing that's really important in a thought is narrative. So you might wonder what a narrative is. A narrative is kind of why your event is existing. Why are you creating the event? What makes you involved? And what is the problem that you're trying to solve? Exactly how do you uniquely solve it? So some questions you should ask yourself first when you're crafting this narrative is, why are you doing this event in the first place? Hopefully it's not for any malicious reason. Hopefully it's not because you want to pad your resume, because that is pretty hard to cover up in within an application and with sponsors as well. But you definitely want to ask yourself, why are you personally involved in this event? I'll provide examples to kind of answer these questions at the end, so that way maybe you can get a mold for how you want to answer them. The second question you want to ask yourself is, why do you believe in this event? So you know why you're involved, but why do you actually truly think this is an event worth being involved in? Because there definitely are a lot of events that happen every day that maybe don't go as planned, or the people themselves didn't really believe the event was possible in the first place, so you kind of lose hope. So you want to make sure that the reason why you're joining this event is clear for you, but also it makes it easier for you to specify to your sponsor. If they ask you, like, how'd you get involved? It'll be really easy to answer this question. So the next thing is, what is unique or special about your event? So there are, of course, many high school hackathons and hackathons in general that are run every single year. And what makes your event special? Because obviously, if your city already has a hackathon every single weekend, then what is the point of running yours? Is there a particular like focus? Like, are you focusing on women in tech, more diversity in tech? Are you focusing on apps? Are you focusing on game development? Like, what makes your hackathon so unique that it's worth being sponsored over the other hackathons? Lastly, and most importantly, honestly, how is your event positively impacting your community? You can talk all you want about how awesome game development is and how, like, you'll create really awesome projects that companies may want, but ultimately the reason why a lot of companies get involved is not because they want to promote their product. That's just like a side benefit, but a lot of times it's because they want to give back to their community. That's why very big corporations will get involved in small events, because it's not just about creating a brand for themselves, but also the fact that they feel this moral obligation to give back. So obviously you want to cater to both. You want to make it clear that what you're doing has a real impact, but also you want to make it clear that you will positively impact this sponsor as well. So that is how those are the 4 questions that you should answer. So here's another. So the last question, I guess I added on another one and I forgot, sorry. How should you maintain contacts post event? So just keep in mind that how will you first off keep like students engaged with one another and engaged with sponsors after an event happens? How will you remain engaged with the sponsor after an event happens? Those are all really important questions to answer, because though they may not show up directly, and you're a lot easier to craft a narrative that you are totally on board with. Ultimately, a lot of what goes into a narrative is, do you believe in it? And if you believe in it, most other people will. I do debate, and that's pretty much how debate works. Like, as long as you state a fact that is completely wrong, but very confidently, you state that very confidently, you will most likely get the points from that. So we're going to skip this one right now because, Mingjie, we're going to skip this one. So crafting a narrative, we want to make sure that, within crafting a narrative specifically, the other 2 questions are really good just to keep in mind. Like, what should you do if they say yes? We're going to go into that more in detail later. But talking about a narrative itself, like, how did I create a narrative? So Mingjie got it. So crafting my own narrative was pretty easy because I have a very unique story in technology. I actually spoke at a TEDx recently about this, but my story was that until my sophomore year, I can't exactly remember, I think it was my sophomore year, until then, I had absolutely no aspirations to go into technology. I thought it was boring, even though my dad was a software architect and he always wanted me to just like give it a try for fun. I never found it fun or fulfilling. I just thought, I'm not smart enough for this and I should totally do something else, because coding is for geniuses and I'm not a genius. So it wasn't until I went to my first hackathon in the fall of 2016, Revolution UC. It was at the University of Cincinnati, and it was actually a collegiate hackathon that accepted high schoolers. So I went and we created a meme generator there, which was very exciting. Terrible code, but it was so awesome that I decided I wanted to keep on learning. I wanted to be able to maybe create better meme generators, or hopefully ascend from that, maybe not just do meme generators. And I decided after that, because I wanted to keep on learning, I wanted a medium through which to learn. So long story short, I ended up co-founding Mason Hack Club with a bunch of close friends who are also interested in technology. And Mason Hack Club has hosted Cincy Hacks. We're actually in the process of doing Cincy Hacks again. It's in September. And we also had a lot of student involvement in Mason Hack Club had a lot of student involvement in Hack Chicago, which I was involved in. One of our other co-directors was involved in it for design. So basically, me sophomore year blossomed into me now. And if you told me at the beginning of sophomore year that this is where I would have been, I would have laughed at you. I imagined myself like only doing debate, completely focused on debate, because I really do love debate. But then I realized here that this is like a passion that I really had as well. It was so fun. Coding was just so much more fun than Scratch, which is where I learned to first code. And I'm not sure of many people who love Scratch, so I didn't actually really love it. I decided coding not for me. I went to a hackathon, was like, awesome, created the club, now I'm here. And that is my entire story. And oh, I forgot to delete that line. I realized Mark is God. But essentially, I always summarize it as 2 main points. First, I recognize the power of a hackathon for students like me, students that maybe weren't super interested in tech, maybe didn't know about tech, didn't know how to code. I recognize the power of a hackathon specifically, because I mean, I'd taken computer science courses. I'd never actually done anything cool, and I actually didn't really understand what I was doing at all. The second thing that I realized is that I knew there were no other opportunities within 100 miles that could engage a student like my first hackathon did. So that's what I told all sponsors, because it is really the reason why I got involved in Hack Chicago, Cincy Hacks, and Mason Hack Club. So this is the narrative, and these are some reminders. First, this is hard. Creating a narrative is hard. It's like trying to write an essay, but the essay dollars. Like, you don't want to mess it up, but also it's not going to be perfect the first try. So first, yes, it's hard. But second, just make sure you take your time. Give yourself enough time to develop a strong narrative. The third thing is that you shouldn't be afraid to revise it. Just because you've already sent sponsors an email with this narrative doesn't mean you can't change the narrative for your next batch of emails. And the fourth one is most important. It's to stay true to yourself. Sometimes you can exaggerate small details of your story, but ultimately you want to make sure that what you're telling people is what you honestly believe, And what you honestly believe should be good enough for those sponsors. If you're in it because you love to code and you want to show other people how awesome coding is, that is enough to convince a sponsor that you have the conviction and dedication to make this event happen. So that is what I have so far. For creating narratives, I think Mingjie said that we have a few questions. Is that correct?
Yep. 3 questions now. We have first question. Oh, wait, let's start from the short questions, right? So, Catherine Huan asked, "What was Hack Chicago organized by a remote team?"
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
mostly. So, Mingjie was marketing. He's from Maryland. I'm from Ohio. I did sponsorship and finance. Sean was the only one within Illinois itself, and even he wasn't too close to Chicago. So, but he handled all of our logistics, venue stuff. And then we had Zane all the way in California, Sacramento, California, who handled all of our technology. So it was a remote team.
And all right, next question. TechBug 2012. What TEDx did you speak at?
Look at TEDx Mason High School. I'm not sure that the videos are out yet. But like if you look in the next few months, it should be there sometime. Yeah, it just talked about my journey for a hackathon.
Okay, so we have one long question. It says, Joshua, could you explain more about your coding camps? I think it's referring to Hack Camp. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Mingjie, can you put that on the back burner for now?
Yeah.
Answer that. Okay, cool. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it for now.
Okay, awesome. So we're gonna move on. Next, really important is to create first impressions. Now we all know that the first impression, somebody's first impression of you sticks for a very, very, very long time. And oftentimes you only get to interact with sponsors a few times. So you need to make sure you make a good first impression. So let's go over a laundry list of things that you want people to think about you. First, that you have a huge amount of potential, that if they invest in you, maybe you'll create even more events and get their name out there more. Maybe you'll end up coming and working for them. Maybe you'll end up being like a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and they'll be able to say that they sponsored an event that you ran when you were in high school. Those are all reasons why a company would want to sponsor, because they believe in the people organizing it. The next thing is authenticity, being authentic, being genuine. This is not something that's commonly talked about, but it's honestly the most important thing. People want to know that what you're telling them is honest, it's truthful, and it's what you genuinely believe, because that way they can easily gauge your motivations. They know that you'll do anything to make this event happen. And that's why authenticity matters. Nobody wants to talk to a robot. Make sure that when you're with people, don't get like uptight and professional, but like obviously don't be rude. But make sure that that authentic side of you speaks out. Young, we have the people really, really admire like are you get stuff done. And I experienced that a lot with Hack Chicago. A lot of people just said, I'm so excited about what you're doing, and I'm so excited that you're so excited about what you're doing. So Make sure you make people feel like you're being completely authentic. So the third thing is hardworking. That goes with dedicated, motivated, driven, and passionate. These are all just a laundry list of things, but you want to make sure that nothing you do goes against these ideals. Hardworking is important because they know that you're doing your best and they want to support people who work hard. Being dedicated is important. That way they know it's not just like a side hobby of yours. Being motivated and driven means that people will know that you will do anything to make this event happen, which is the next bullet point. And being passionate. People want to know that they're sponsoring an event that's run by somebody who is so deeply passionate about what they're doing. Because passion, although it's intangible, it has tangible benefits. You'll see people who are passionate cleaning up every hour. Like every hour they'll come around and clean up, or they'll engage with sponsors. They'll engage with event attendees. They'll do anything to make the event not only happen but the best it can be. So passion is really important. Next is being trustworthy, and this is within any context. If you tell somebody you're going to be on a call at this time, you better be on that call at that time. If you say you're going to meet somebody there, if you say I'm going to follow up with you later with more details, follow up with them later. Even if you don't have more details, you always need to follow through on your promises. So next is being a good person. Obviously, overall, nobody wants to sponsor someone who's mean. And especially when you have that genuine motivation and dedication to helping other people, to having that community impact, that's really important because they're sponsoring somebody who's in general just an awesome person, but also can potentially make this event much different than other events they've sponsored. So the last one's really important. Despite all of these, you want to make sure that they know you have the connections or just in general the intellectual capacity to get questions answered, to get stuff done. Because they don't expect you to have all the answers, but they do expect you to be able to eventually get them. And you want to make sure that they know you have the resources or the connections, or just in general that you're smart enough to answer these questions. And the way that you do that is through not only being trustworthy, but also making sure that when you're talking with them, you don't get too casual. You don't use too much low diction. You definitely want to make sure that you portray yourself as a motivated young student who's just in general outstanding, and that includes intellectually. So we'll go over how to do that within emails, but this was just a laundry list. So next, here are qualities that people will probably tell you to be like, but they're actually not that important. So first, acting like you are a professional, or just in general being overly professional. And that often comes if you are trying to just seem like you're an expert or like you're older than you are. And don't do that, because people like seeing that youthful spirit. Once again, they love it. So when you try to come off as older than you are, people start questioning your authority. Like, do you actually know what you're talking about? You're clearly not 31. Why are you acting 31? So make sure that you still exude that youthfulness. The next thing is being a negotiator. I know that you can get better deals, and sometimes there are places to do that. Definitely, sometimes if you have this giant company as your sponsor, don't let them sponsor at $500. Definitely try to bargain up, but you never want to, like, once they've set a hard limit, you never want to keep trying to go up, because then that's just impolite. It's rude. Maybe you might get a few successes, but you'll definitely make a lot of people annoyed in the process. So that's not worth it. The next thing is being extremely smart. It's just really not worth it overall. Even though it may help you, it takes a lot to convince somebody that you're extremely smart, and any slip up could change that image. So you don't want to be extremely smart. You want to be smart with the capacity to get smarter wherever they need you to. That's it. Next thing is know-it-all. If they give you suggestions, don't act like you already know what they're talking about, because chances are you don't. Companies have very unique perspectives on how to give sponsorships, how they identify where they should get involved, and you need to take that. Even if it's criticizing your own work, make sure you take it with a light heart. Okay. And the last one is that you have your entire future planned out. Because you definitely don't. And it's really not worth acting like you know absolutely everything that's going to happen down the road. It's okay to have small things that you don't know. Like, I don't know what the table size is going to be yet, but I'll get that to you as soon as I can. I don't know what color we're going to make our logo yet. I don't know exactly how many t-shirts we're ordering yet, but I can get that all figured out. And it's that but that's really important. Make sure people know that maybe you don't have everything planned out, but it's being done right now, and you'll get them an answer as soon as possible. The last thing are things that are very bad. And you probably already know this, but let's just talk about it very briefly. So first, don't be an opportunist, okay? People don't want to feel like they're being taken advantage of. And when you are flaky, they'll feel like you don't actually value them. Second is acting like you're in it for the resume. And I know people try to hide that a lot of times, which is good. But it's very clear when you don't actually have a genuine passion and just doing it for the resume. Next thing is that this is simply a dream and will never become a reality. Don't overshoot your numbers. That's really, really bad because people will expect that, or people will question whether or not it's even possible. So you'll alienate a lot of sponsors that way. Also, don't be mean. Don't talk bad about other people. If they're private conversations, keep them private, but don't mention them to your sponsors. If you're frustrated with somebody on your team, if you're frustrated with another sponsor, don't talk about that kind of stuff. This is not the appropriate place for it, especially when you're talking to a sponsor. And then lastly, just continuously negotiating for better deals. It's just annoying. It's really, really annoying. So we all try not to do that. Sounds good? Okay, so how to create good first impressions. I'll go over this pretty quickly, but I religiously use LinkedIn. I think by now I have close to 1,000 connections on it, solely because every person I meet, every person I think would be interested in Hack Chicago or Hack Club or Cincy Hack's mission, I connect with them. So make sure that you keep it professional, but also be a little shameless. If you see somebody that you think, oh, they may not, I'm going to answer questions at the end, by the way, but make sure that you're shameless also. If you see somebody that you think, oh, they probably won't connect with me, just try it. As long as it's not offensive, they're not going to be offended if you try to connect. That actually worked really well for me, and I've connected with a lot of top executives at like Fortune 500 companies. So just be shameless. People like to see a high schooler with a lot of grit and a lot of initiative to even get involved in LinkedIn on the first place. Make sure you're polite, obviously. If they decline it, don't keep requesting them. And then also play the numbers game, okay? I know it might feel weird that you're connecting with so many people from the same company, but as long as you genuinely feel like they'll be interested in what you're doing, for a hackathon, I always try to connect with technology, information, cybersecurity officers, even like HR or PR. Just any of these people that you think would be interested in getting a company involved. Play the numbers game, any of them. Another thing that I actually did when I had a little bit of downtime in mid-June, I think. Oh no, early June. But I started making videos that were 2 to 3 minutes long, just introducing myself and the event. You don't have to make videos. And they were really hard to make, and I probably wouldn't recommend anybody actually doing it because it took a very long time and it didn't actually yield too much. But what you want to make sure is that sponsors know that you're trying as hard as you can to make this event happen, that it's a really big deal. Is getting warm introductions from somebody you trust. That are the best. So, questions, Mingjie.
All right, I'm unmuted. Great. So we have a question that's really backed by a lot of people. When you said have connections or intellectual capacity to get questions answered, what kind of questions are you referring to?
So if they ask you, like, how does the legal work? How does the legal side work? What forms do you have to fill out? Can you send me your W-9? Do you know your tax ID? What else? What are other questions that sponsor? Like, do you know exactly what entrance people will be coming in from? Like, where will we have a booth? It's just lower level questions that you may not have considered yet, or it's questions that you really can't answer yourself. So whenever legal or financial questions came into play, I always connected them with Zach Lotta, the executive director of Hack Club, because he was running like kind of the legal side as our fiscal sponsor for Hack Chicago. So just make sure that they know that they can get the answer they can get the answers to the questions. So almost immediately after people agreed to sponsor, I would connect them with Zach immediately, even if they weren't ready to pay yet. I just wanted them to know that there was a resource there that they could use. So yeah.
All right. And there's a question from Catherine Huang. Is a narrative okay? So she asked this question a while ago. So it's right after you finish the narrative question. Is narrative a personal one or a story for the whole event? Elaborating is basically like she's wondering if you're talking about a personal story or a mission for a whole event as a narrative.
Yeah. So, I'll get into that a little bit more later. But to clarify here, a narrative can be either, and it's actually what telling. So for me, my story was actually the most compelling for a lot of sponsors because they've never heard. But if you don't have that kind of story, you just really love tech, that's totally fine too. As long as you define a problem and a solution, it'll be all fine. So just basically go with whatever seems to work the best. I would iterate and try both, and whichever one gets you more money. I can actually go over the prospectus really quickly. So if you look on the screen, right now, so yeah, this was the first thing we actually came up with. We had a prospectus, and we identified the problem, which was that Chicago's population has been in free fall, and all the smart people are leaving. The solution is stuff like Hack Chicago, and we hope to get like a whole revolution started. So this is one potential narrative, and Zach worked with us a lot on this one. But then after that, I realized that like I can get a lot more specific. This is not a bad narrative, but I could get a lot better because of my own background. So I decided to go with a personal story. Pretty much anything that is unique, anything that doesn't just sound like you pulled it out of like a politician's speech, is just pure rhetoric. Anything like that, companies will like more than something that just sounds like you put it. I don't even know that you smushed a bunch of big words together, pretty much.
Okay, so the next question is kind of related to what you just talked about. It's Adishri. I hope I read your name right. When did you start to share your own personal stories with your sponsors? Is it like the initial email or a phone call? You said you included part of the story in the prospectus. You might want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, so I didn't actually include my own personal story in the prospectus. I'll go over a little bit how I iterated over time. But I included my story in the initial email because I wanted people to know that I was not just spam, that I had a really good reason for reaching out. And you always want to make sure that you the first time that you contact a sponsor, they know that you're genuine about it. Obviously, if it's like a warm introduction and you're just saying hi, like that is totally fine. But when you're actually giving them the information for the event, that's important. You want to make sure that you also include your story, your narrative. Whether it's the hackathon's mission or it's your own story of why you're involved, either of those are equally compelling in different ways. So make sure that sponsors know that first, because then they will be more compelled to reply if they feel like this is actually something worth replying to. Because obviously people are busy. They won't reply to stupid emails, pretty much. So whatever it takes to get that response rate up.
All right. Next question is from Typo 2012. One thing I'm worried about is that people will see me as not knowing what I'm talking about if I tell them I'm 16. Isn't it better to just not bring up your age unless you have to?
So I actually thought that a lot too. So actually, especially if you're running a high school hackathon, right now, there's this whole movement towards millennial empowerment. I'm speaking at a conference in a month about this, but people are super on, like, people really want to learn about how can they retain millennials, because millennials bring this whole perspective, and that would be the same for Gen Z. So I actually started by not mentioning how old I was, and I realized over time that when you tell them that you're young, you also tell them that, like, sure, maybe you don't know everything in the world, maybe you don't know how the entire, like, all the law for finances work, but what you do know is something that worked for you, and you know your peers, you know your impact. And when you tell people that you're 16, maybe they'll think, oh, she's young, but the second thing they'll think is, I admire her motivation, her taking initiative, her or him. And that is something really good. If they admire what you're doing, that's already really good. People feel very compelled to help people that they feel like are really good in general. So I would definitely mention your age, because first it gets people inspired. They see you and they're like, dang, I should have done that when I was young. But outside of that, it also proves that you know your target market. I mean, you're not trying to target 50-year-olds. You're not trying to target 5-year-olds. You're trying to target people who are just like you. And when you tell them you are the person that you're essentially the demographic that you're trying to target, they are much, much more likely to believe what you're saying. When you tell them that like there's a huge CS education deficiency, they'll be much more likely to believe it because you're the one who's living it. So I would absolutely, definitely mention your age. As long as you come across as smart, young and smart, that's the best combination you can get.
That's all the questions for now. You can continue on. Drink some water.
I'm okay. In debate, I have to do 40-minute rounds anyway, so this is fun. Okay, so the next thing I'll go over really quickly is just creating sponsorship levels. Yeah, sponsorship levels. Look at that thing. Pointer. Okay, anyway, sorry. So sponsorship levels are basically just what level sponsors come in at. So if they give you $500, they get the certain benefits. If they give you like $20,000, they get these benefits. So rule of thumb, just make the highest tier at minimum at least half of your event costs. Yeah, at least half. And for Hack Chicago, we went a little overboard because we didn't actually know exactly how many people were going to show up. So we just gave them the full range. And really none of them sponsored at really high levels, but we wanted them to know at least that that was an option. So make sure that your lowest tier, however, is always a significant contribution. If you are running a $50,000 budget, don't make your lowest tier $500. That's pretty much nothing in the grand scheme of things, and it's not really worth pursuing with your time because your time is really valuable. Next, make sure that sponsors feel like they're getting their money's worth, and there's a lot of ways to do this. I'll talk about it at the end. And third, strong higher contributions. This is in terms of phone calls, meeting them in person, emailing. Make sure that you follow up quickly. Make sure that your emails are very well worded and that they generally just feel like you are a strong communicator, that you know what's going on within your hackathon. And that will lead people to contribute higher amounts because they know that the money won't be mishandled. It won't get lost. You know exactly what you're doing. So this was the Hack Chicago sponsorship doc. The things that I've circled in pink are just the things that I found sponsors really liked. So the first thing is to make sure that you keep your tiers flexible so that way you can cater to different needs. If there's a company in Vancouver that wants to sponsor, they probably won't want the sponsored info booth because they won't be able to go, but they will want maybe like a press release mention. So make sure that you're just willing to switch stuff around, especially if it doesn't hurt your event. What I found personally is that the best perks are a sponsored information booth as well as a logo on a t-shirt. By far, people always wanted this. So make sure that you place this, put your best perks at above the very minimum level. So for us, that was a $2,000 level to get both of the perks. And just make sure that it's at a significant level, that it's not just, once again, a throwaway. Remember that you should not forget about in-kind sponsorships. So Hack Chicago was actually running a negative budget for a while until someone suggested to me that I should try prize sponsorships. So I ended up emailing NVIDIA, Bose, Roku, all of these major companies that have awesome stuff. And I asked them for a couple things and they ended up sending a lot of stuff out. So that will reduce the amount of money you have to raise a lot. And it's a lot easier because companies are willing to send product. It's easy, but it's going through that financial process of writing a check that is really, really hard. Sometimes it'll take weeks or months to get that done. So yeah, it's also great promo for them. And the last thing is really important. Do not take money from everybody. I know that you're trying to fundraise and you just need money, but also remember that there are two kinds of companies or people that you should be wary of. First, people who try to bargain down what you believe are very reasonable rates, or second, people that value their own product more than they value the event itself. We got a few people reach out to us saying like, oh, I have this awesome product and I want to sponsor you with this awesome product. And when we actually got to talk to them, it didn't feel like they really genuinely cared about making the hacker experience the best. They just wanted everybody to use their product and for very minimal in exchange to us. So don't get difficult sponsors, especially if they're not contributing very much at all, maybe just the software that you don't even really need in the first place. Always opt to go with the most easy to communicate with sponsors. So that is it for creating sponsorship levels. Should be pretty short. Do we have any questions, Mingjie?
Hold on. Every time I need to move my mouse over to another screen to turn on my microphone. So, okay. We have 2 questions. Wait, hold on. Give me a second. All right. We have a few questions here. Someone just asked a bunch of questions. We gotta start one by one from the top. TechBud 2012. One thing I'm worried about is that people will see me as. Oh wait, that's another one. Never mind. Let's go back to. All right, next question. Athul, I have never seen McDonald's in a hackathon sponsor list before. Congrats on getting them to sponsor. Why do you think they decided to step into the game, and why didn't they do it earlier?
McDonald's. Well, McDonald's is actually a crazy story, but basically, I connected with their CEO on LinkedIn. It was pretty much spur of the moment. I was like, you know what? If he doesn't accept it, that's okay. Like, there's not really much to lose there. He ended up accepting. I emailed him a video, a 2 to 3 minute video, just explaining what Hack Chicago was, and he seemed really interested. What was really unique was that McDonald's had just moved back into the Chicago area. Actually, pretty sure like at the exact time that we were communicating, they were just moving back into their Chicago office after being in the suburbs for a while. So it was really great timing as well. But also, I think that just in general, the fact that I made a video was kind of touching to them because they obviously don't really see that at the corporate level. People don't really make videos people don't make like personalized videos. But I think it was that plus the fact that they really wanted to get their name out there, that they were more than just the fast food company. So they wanted to expose their technology opportunities, and I think that's why they contributed. So thankful for them. They were absolutely awesome.
Wasn't it McDonald that just moved to Chicago or something like that?
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. All right. TechBud 2012. About the best person to contact for a sponsorship. I think we're gonna address that later. Is it?
The contact. Oh, I actually don't have that in here. So
you don't? Okay.
Just for the record, when you're contacting people for sponsorship, there's a huge array. First, try to reach out via any forms they have online. And this is why you should start early because this is the first thing you should do, reaching out via forms that they have online for sponsorships or for community engagement or something. If you don't get a response within 1 to 2 weeks, then try emailing somebody who manages community outreach or I don't even know, manages any of the community engagement stuff or social impact, whatever, all that kind of stuff. If that doesn't work, I would email somebody that you either have a mutual connection with on LinkedIn or has been very vocal about technology in general. And honestly, for me, I just if you know you have a good email, I just straight emailed chief executives, any of the C-level people. So specifically, I would go with either the executive, the CEO, the CIO, or the CTO, or the CISO, I think, or the CSO. So security, information, technology, information security, and the executive officer. So definitely try to start low, but if people just aren't responding or really giving you the response that says yes or no definitively, then I would just reach out even further. Just go up the chain, but also remember that your time is valuable. And if you feel like you'll get a more complete or better response from somebody higher up in the chain, I would say don't hesitate to just email them directly because there are a lot of not chief executive officers, a lot of C-level people who were really excited about what we were doing, and they were immediately on board and they got stuff done really fast. So yeah.
Okay. Smaller questions coming up. Angus, what is an in-kind sponsor?
In-kind sponsorships are like if people send you their products. So if Bose sent us speakers, if NVIDIA sends us graphics cards, or if like a restaurant just donates a bunch of food, somebody sends you like software, that those are all in-kind sponsors because they didn't give you money, but they still gave you something of value.
Okay. All right. Next pronunciation challenge, Fahan. What type of tone do you want to set when you introduce yourself to a sponsor?
I will actually let me think. I actually talk about that later on, so I'm just going to delay that question for right now. I talk about how to do email introductions and what you want to portray. I'll talk about that more.
And that's it for the questions. But I feel like we're definitely running overtime today. It's 8:51 right now. Yeah, let's continue on and see how far we go.
Yeah, I think we'll probably just keep going.
Yeah, let's just keep running.
Yeah, we haven't gotten into the bulk of it yet, so.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone.
Yes,
definitely.
Thank you so much for being with us. So methods of contacting people, really basic, but there's a lot of different ways. Warm introductions, if they're a previous sponsor, email, phone, LinkedIn, social media, and networking events. So we're going to be focusing on emails. LinkedIn is bolded because LinkedIn is a really great tool to use. But we're going to be focusing on emails because that's typically how you reach out to people nowadays. So we will just get started with that then. So this is the kind of cool part because you'll actually see a lot of emails that I sent that were successful. So we're going to start breaking down emails. How should you be emailing people? What should you include in an email? So let's look at the first thing, which is always the email subject. Like what should I be writing there? It's always really tough. But for me, I just went with high school innovation opportunity. And the reason I went with this was because it was catchy, but not clickbait. And it makes corporate people feel good because they love empowering young people. And it feels like a fresh departure from the typical workspace vibes. Because it's like high school, youth, awesome, passion. And when you get older and older, I feel like some of the passion may start to drift away, which is why people are particularly excited about working with young people who are really excited about what they're doing. The next thing is that I use the keyword of innovation, and that's because I know that right now innovation is a huge deal. Everyone wants an innovator, a creator, someone who can make new ideas and make stuff like go viral. So I use that in my title as well. And then opportunity makes something seem more important and potentially a loss to not take a look at. So if you say this is an opportunity, it insinuates that like, oh, this is something that you might regret if you don't check it out. So that will get you higher click rates, hopefully. And that's what I ended up going with. The next thing is an introduction. So, and it says same for all three because I went through 3 main iterations of my email. But within an email introduction, make sure that you get to the point immediately. Don't add in a bunch of fluff. This is not like, it's not like a creative writing, essentially. It should be very to the point and respecting their time. Make sure that you describe the event very briefly, but cohesively and with enough detail that they know what it is. And even explain what a hackathon is. And it especially depends on the region. I imagine that if you probably won't have to explain it, but for people in the Midwest, at least, they don't know what a hackathon is at all. So I would just add coding competition. Next, make sure that you add flair and voice where you can. So the example here is the use of the phrase. I can say heart and we're going to be in the heart of it. It's like going to be awesome. So adding any rhetoric or creative writing where you can without making it. Oh, wait, Mingjie, can you hear me? Oh, okay. So I was told that the audio cut out, so I'm going to start again. So, wait, Mingjie, exactly where should I start?
30 seconds ago.
Email introduction?
No, like not too far away, like around a minute.
Okay, so I guess I'll just go over the bullet points really quickly again. So first, you want to make sure you get to the point right away. Respect their time. Don't add any flair where you don't need to. Next, describe the event succinctly. Make sure that you give enough detail that they know what it is, but it's not like a writing, it's not like an essay. Explain what a hackathon is if you need to. If you're aware that people around you typically don't know what a hackathon is, explain it really quickly in the email. Here, I just wrote essentially, why, no, cancel? Okay, sorry. So it's essentially a coding competition. That I wrote that just to explain what a hackathon is. And then make sure that you also add flair and voice where you can. So I use the phrase here, Heart of Chicago. Then I say like by far the largest high school hackathon ever. So both of these are added phrases that give a lot more voice and are more like what I speak like. So it seems a lot more conversational. And then lastly, make sure that you clearly believe in your event. The use of the word by far means that I really truly believe this will be by far the largest hackathon. And there's a lot of voice that's added in there, and people start to recognize that you are really determined to make this event work. And the last thing is being young is to your advantage in this stage. When you're just emailing people, being young is awesome. So using the phrase wondering is a great way to show curiosity and youthfulness. So just a few words that you may want to consider using or synonyms for it. In general, just these tips are really great for an introduction. In my opinion, an introduction is the most important because it's the first thing they'll actually read. And a lot of times they'll just start skipping over it because they're really busy. So make a great first impression with a great introduction. The next thing is the email body. So this is the earliest iteration I had, and this one's pretty important because it was the first thing that got me my first 2 or 3 sponsors. So within this body, it shows off logic and writing abilities. Hopefully, you want to make sure people know that your writing abilities are good, which means you're a good communicator, that you're smart, that you are an intellectual, but also that you show off your logic, that you know what you're talking about, you have everything in place, and you have a defined problem, defined solution, and that like if people ask you questions, they can bank on you actually knowing the answer. So you want to make sure you know what you're doing. The next thing is reveal a problem, confidently state a solution, but really importantly, do not overstate your impact. If your community only has like 1,000 people and you say you want to run an 1,000-person event, like that is a little bit ridiculous. And if it's so ridiculous to the point where people are like, really? Like, is that even possible? Like, I don't think that's possible. That's when you get into dangerous territory. So don't overstate it. And if you are, at least make it very clear that that's just a goal. So the next thing you'll notice is that there are 2 things bolded here. So Hack Chicago oh man, there's a grammatical error here. Oops. Hack Chicago is the beginning of a long-term solution, and Chicago's incredible tech and corporate opportunities will grow clear. So it allows people to gloss over and find different information just by skimming. And also make sure that you bold with caution, though. What will make somebody think, I like this. What is it? Like, I want to read more. So hopefully when they're reading over this, they'll see that, oh, it's the beginning of a long-term solution and that opportunities will grow really clear. That's really awesome. And hopefully they'll read over more of it. The goal of all of your emails is to get a response, because once you get a response, potentially get them on a phone call, it's so much easier to convince them because they can hear your dedication and your passion within your own voice. So that is email body number 1. Email body number 2, what got us our $5,000 sponsor. This is the middle iteration. So this is my second one. And it kept, so I didn't list it up here, but it actually kept the last few lines. So down here, it kept these lines. But what changed a lot was that it shows my story genuinely. So here it talks about my actual story. And this is where you can see that I kind of departed from the traditional like mission of my event and instead started talking about my own intentions and why I'm involved and what I hope to do. So if you want to read through it, it just really briefly goes over like I got involved and now this is what I'm doing. And it establishes my ability to execute events. So it's a reason for them to believe in me. When they read this, they'll think, oh, like she did this stuff. She motivated her peers or inspired them through events that she hosted. I believe in her. I think what she'll do is awesome. Oh, oops. featuring my cat. The last sentence, though, is pretty critical because it's a pretty well-constructed sentence that took a lot of revision, but ultimately it's a clear call to action. It gets them to recognize what they can do. It shows them like why they're important and why you actually really need them. And that's because you can't change the minds of an entire generation without support. So just having that single line by itself was really impactful because when they're scanning through it, it's also bolded. So when they're scanning through it, they'll definitely read it. So it's a very clear call for help. And it's hard to turn down somebody asking for help when they clearly have a problem and they're really excited about solving it. The last email body is my third one. It was my last one. So this body paragraph told my story, but in a different way. It was much more succinct. It didn't talk about all the internships and other people, but instead it says that I'm reaching out to you because blank is a company with an incredible presence in the entire US, let alone just Chicago. And this is how you benefit. You benefit because you engage with underrepresented Midwest students. I'm from Cincinnati myself, and this is my story. I talk about very briefly. I actually only spend one sentence on my story. But the most impactful thing here is that I get sympathy. People recognize that it was a little difficult to get into tech when you're in a region where the only hackathon I'm eligible for within a 100-mile radius around me is I only have one, and I went to it. So I get a little bit of sympathy, but it also validates my authority and authenticity that I struggle with this issue and I want to solve it for other people because I want to take luck and location out of the equation for success in tech. This shows a determination and a drive to make a change that I experienced this, I felt these emotions, and now I want to give other people that same experience I had. But also make sure that you explain your situation and you are completely humble and honest. Here, in this case, I was super honest in that it was within a 100-mile radius around me. So honestly, if I really, really wanted to, I could have made that 100-mile drive out, but I don't want to over-exaggerate numbers. And I also want to remain humble. This is not the time to talk about all the awards that you've won in all these tech things. Yeah. Just talk about your situation, but don't necessarily use this as a way to flaunt how awesome you are because there's very different ways to do it. Like if you look back here, this talks about exactly what you went on to accomplish, whereas you don't want to flaunt it in this context because this is a very succinct email. If you actually look at the rest of it, it's very, very short, and this is the bulk of it. So you want to keep it small. And just remember your tone. If throughout the entire thing you're just talking about how you want to empower other people, maybe this isn't the best time to talk about how you won an award at a hackathon. There are places and times for it, and different emails will call for different things. So this was my last iteration. I mainly use this for in-kind sponsorships. So let's look at email ending. So I've so far done the introduction, the body, and now I'm going to do the ending. And this was my first iteration of an ending. So there are a couple key phrases here. A sponsorship from blank company aligns perfectly with your and Hack Chicago's values. When I state that this aligns with your values, it shows that I have done my research, that this was not just like I found my email online, I found your email online somewhere, now I'm just emailing you. It clearly shows that I looked into exactly what this company has done. Like why would they be interested? Like exactly what facet would they be interested in? But it also shows that like I know exactly why I'm reaching out. It's not just that I'm asking for money. I think that you'll genuinely benefit from working with Hack Chicago. And the way I do that is saying, just like how a blank company uses technology to enhance traditional business operations, Hack Chicago will ... do all of this awesome stuff that somehow relates to enhancing traditional business operations. So in this case, it was streamlining the solution for common real world problems. So in this case, streamline kind of parallels with enhance. And it's common real world problems that kind of parallels with traditional. Overall, it makes a little bit more sense when you're just reading it in context. But it just shows that you've done your research and that you're reaching out with a purpose. Next, make sure that you have a clear plan of action. Here I said, I'd love to send you some more information or schedule a phone call. These two things are important because it means they have two options to go with and that you have a very clear course of action. that you want to schedule a phone call or you'll send them some more information. And it's much harder for them to reject you when you've already laid out the 2 things they can do and how easy it is to do them. The last thing is the phrase, I'm excited about the future of Hack Chicago. The idea of I'm excited creates images of passion and determination, which is really good. People want to know that you're really excited and that like you're bouncing up and down in your chair just because you're so excited about making this event work. You might not actually be doing that, but make sure that you portray that you're really passionate. Make sure that people know that you're not just a robot behind the emails like Mingjie. You're really genuinely excited about what you're doing. So the second email maintained the same iteration as the second email's ending was the same as this one. So we're just going to move on to the last iteration, which was kind of unique because in this case, I had actually sent an email with a video attached to it. So you can see that here. I linked the video. I linked the video here. But in general, just ignoring that part, what's down here is kind of, it's much more succinct and short and simple. And it has a very, very clear call to action here because the last one had kind of a call to action, but this one's extremely clear. It says, let me know what you need or what time you want to talk. It tells them exactly what to contact you with so that way you can get the ball rolling. The phrase, I'll make it happen, shows dedication to what you're doing. It means that, once again, this is not just a side project, that you are doing what you can to make this event happen. People really appreciate that. Oh, there's my cat again. Sorry. The last thing is subtle pressure. And I actually kind of determined this while I was moving along, but I realized that when I use the phrase looking forward to talking to you, it insinuates that we will eventually talk. So it creates some kind of subtle pressure for them to actually respond. Because once again, you want to get the number of responses up. So using very subtle pressure in these ways is really awesome because it gives them the opportunity to interact with you more in person, so that way they can learn about exactly why you're contacting them. Even if they don't end up sponsoring, it's really good for them, so that way they can kind of gauge what the tech market is like now, what are millennials and Gen Zers doing, and maybe in the future they can get involved. So that was the email ending. The last thing is your email signature, and make sure you don't forget about this, but something here to notice is that I wrote my titles, head of sponsorship, and then I bold the organization I'm working with, because ultimately people don't care exactly what your title is. You're 15, 16, 17, 18 at most. And they really just want to know, what event are you working with? What organization are you working in? So I bold Hack Chicago. One thing to notice is that this is not a very fluffy title. It's just saying head of sponsorship, which is very much descriptive of what I did. And I don't have like this ridiculous position. So wait, Mingjie, is the audio cutting out? Oh.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, make sure that you don't give yourself a ridiculous position. So something saying like chief of, or if you have like a 5-person team, don't be like everybody is like an executive director of the event. Like you want to get some sort of specificity so people know who to reach out to, but you don't want to be like chief of operations and venue security. Like it's just very oddly specific. Try to keep it generally broad, especially if you have a small team. And the phrase manager is just generally kind of weird when you're working within a hackathon, because like honestly there's not really that much to manage. But of course, if you can phrase it well, then it's always awesome. But I generally like to go with head of blank and blank coordinator. So if it's head of finance, then there will be finance coordinators. Also, don't have a really long title. That's just really annoying. Something to notice here is also that there's a very clear organization name, and the organization's website is listed right here. So that's within my signature as well. Oh, wait. Yeah, my phone number is here. Sorry. So one last thing is that your phone and email must always be listed. So you in your hackathon sponsorship grind lifetime will find that there are a lot of people who don't necessarily fully understand how email works. And you want to make sure that you always list your email in your signature, so that way they know that they can email you, even if you just emailed them just always listed there. It's just good practice. The second thing is having your phone number here. It's really good because let's say you schedule a meeting and you accidentally forget to send your phone number, they can just call you and it'll always work out. Just in general, having a phone number there is good. So that way they can leave you voicemails as well in case anything is urgent, or they can text you. This has worked really well. And I actually texted quite a few sponsors and mentors to get them where they need to be for Hack Chicago. So overall, it's a really good idea to put it there. So let's talk about the iterations really quickly. So my first iteration was an email just to get initial sponsors. So here I recommend to think big and make goals, but also make sure that you communicate that this is simply a goal. Here you should also mention your previous successes to make them feel certain about sponsoring this event, as obviously nobody wants money to go to waste. They don't want to sponsor an event that flops. The last thing is, I also want to mention that those first iterations I showed you were problematic in that they were really long. Well, they weren't really long, but they were too long. How about that? And that was one place that I definitely needed to improve. So that's what I improved in my second and third iterations. So just generally, when you send out your first email, you don't have any sponsors yet, just make sure that you're getting the dream out there and that you mainly actually just want at least one company to sponsor, because once you get that one company, then you will be all set for the other companies, because once they see more and more legitimate companies sponsoring, other companies want to get involved. It's pretty much that easy. It's just like kind of peer pressure, but at the corporate level. Okay, so the next iterations I have are the second and last iteration. So for my second iteration, this is the email I actually used to send videos. So this is the email that I used to send videos to quite a few people. The one that was most successful for us was McDonald's. And the reason I did this is because my current methods weren't working. This email was working to get 2 or 3 sponsors, but it wasn't getting me all the sponsors I needed to make the event happen. So I decided to get creative. I honestly really would not recommend doing videos unless you have a lot of time to spare and you're really good at just speaking perfectly on the first try. So the most important one is my last iteration. This is the best one I actually had. So this was the email to get my last minute sponsors. And here I made sure that I mentioned my current sponsors, especially the ones that are a big deal. So McDonald's was a huge source of pride for us. It was the first student hackathon they've ever sponsored. And make sure you get specific with where and why you need help. So state that I need help because I need to buy food, because I need to buy prizes, because we're $4,000 short on a venue. When people know very quantitative values and they know exactly where those values are going, they're much more likely to sponsor, because it's much easier to convince somebody that like an organization deserves $4,000 when you tell them that you need $4,000 to get this venue, otherwise the event won't run. The last thing is saying to make sure that you establish a timeline within these last minute sponsored emails. So state that you need a response or you need money by some date and that you're this much money short. And don't take this to heart too quickly, because if you're like $20,000 short, you don't want to tell people that, because it's going to inspire a lot of fear. They're going to be like, why are you so short in money? But if you're only $2,000 or $3,000 short, which is what we were in this case, we were around $3,000 short because we couldn't afford all of the prizes yet. We just told people that we were just a few $1,000s short and we needed prizes from them to make the event happen. And it worked really well for us, because it puts a little bit of pressure and it's much easier to get money when people know exactly where that money is going. So those are iterations. Why am I talking about all of these iterations? There's so many of them. And mainly why I want to is because I want to show you what worked, and then I want to show you what really, really worked. But obviously don't worry about having a perfect first draft. My first iteration was not good. Just make sure that you continue to iterate. It will always get better. Also, Mingjie, yes, questions, but I think I have one more slide after this before you can take some more questions.
Sure, don't worry.
Okay, so the third point is that I am just listing out a few components that a good email should have. If you add those components, they're on the next few slides, you'll up the number of responses you get, which is awesome. So throughout these iterations, I can show you kind of what worked and what really worked, what may have been better, and exactly what scenarios these emails are used for. The last thing is just don't worry so much. Don't sweat it. Your groove will come along as you go. Like as you do more,
it'll become much easier to follow up with sponsors, to send you sponsored emails, to connect with people on LinkedIn and follow up from there. So it becomes a lot easier. So, quick summary, what's in a good email? First, your subject should be truthful and interesting. Your introduction should have your name, your background, where you're from, and your immediate purpose in emailing them. Exactly why are you emailing them? Once again, make sure you're respectful with their time. And if it's pretty short, they'll actually read the whole thing, which is what you want. So, in your body, what do you want? Well, you want your story, your motivations, or your narrative that you developed at the beginning of this presentation. And you want the problem and the solution, and you want the purpose of this hackathon. A lot of them are going to overlap. Just make sure that you get that out there. You want your narrative, and you want to make sure there's a clear and defined problem, and you want to make sure that your hackathon is directly addressing that problem that you talk about. The ending is important as well. Just make sure that you have a clear course of action from here on out if interested. So if people are interested, they know to just email you, or they know to just call you or text you at this number. And make sure that you have a call of action in the first place. Just because you tell them you can't email me, instead of that, just saying, let me know if you're interested by emailing me. By doing that, you actually have some sort of commanding tone and ask people to actually reach back to you. The last thing is just to subtly pressure people to take action. And what's really great about hackathons is that when people take action, 99.9% of the time, it will always benefit both them and the hackathon itself. So here, you just want to pressure them to actually listen to more of what you have to say. And to do, like, the way to do that is by getting them to email back saying they want more information, or to actually schedule a phone call with them and get on the phone and tell them exactly what's happening. Because I guarantee you, so many more people will be interested if they got to get on the phone with you the first time. It's not that easy. So that's what the emails are trying to do. They're not trying to get money, they're not trying to immediately get money. They're trying to get you on a phone call where you can then convince them that this hackathon is really, really worth money for its community impact or for its awesome team. So background there. So in general, what is a good email like? First, you want to make sure it shows off the good parts of you in general. And it's not too hard to do that within an email. But also remember, it's not just about boasting about how great you are, but instead, like, showing the parts, not telling them that you're an awesome person. So if you show them your accomplishments that are directly related to hackathons and executing events, then they're much more likely to sponsor. The next thing is that you want to make sure you admit your flaws and vulnerabilities, but you also show a clear drive to overcome them. Don't be delusional. If you know that you struggle in this area, or if you know that, like, you guys maybe don't have the best idea of exactly how all the legal stuff works, once again, you want to show them you have the resources and the connections to overcome this, that you have people that know everything about it and that you can get them that information immediately. The next thing is, once again, emit authenticity. People want to work with people who are genuine, who really care about what they're doing, and that's not something you find very easily. The fourth thing is generally just good writing. Make sure this is something that your English teacher would approve, and maybe even have your parents or peers look over your email before you send it. And next, no grammatical errors. I know I had one. That's really bad. I probably did not have enough sleep, but make sure that you just try not to have any grammatical errors. If there's a few, it's no big deal, but fix everything you can. The second to last thing is addressing people directly. You can either say, hi, Bob, or you can say, hi, Mr. Smith, or hi, Mrs. Smith. Never just say hi, or just say, to whom this may be concerned, I don't even know how that goes, but try to get specific so that way people at least know that you emailed them individually and that it's not just a mass email. The last thing is that make sure you have just enough information on this email that it can get forwarded around the company and people will understand, to whom it may concern. That's what I was thinking of. But anyways, just in general, make sure that there's enough information in the email that if somebody forwarded this email to somebody else, that person would generally know what your event is about and what you're asking for and kind of your motivation. So enough information that's not too long, but good enough that everybody in the company can figure it out. So what's a bad email? Well, if it's too long, I'd say if it's over 4 paragraphs, that is definitely too long. If it's over bolded, italicized, or underlined, it just becomes like, instead of words, it just looks like a bunch of blocks of random stuff, and it's very hard to read. So try not to over bold stuff, especially because it often feels like everything in your email is important, but in reality, there's only a few things that you really want them to definitely read. So bold those, don't bold more than you need to. Also, do not highlight in emails because highlighting is just a little bit weird. At least in my what I perceive highlighting to be like is like very sometimes just telling people like, you need to read this, you need to read this, and it's a little hard on the eyes. First off, it's not very pretty within an email, but also it's insinuating that like they won't read the part that you're highlighting, which is kind of weird. So just in general, if you want to bring emphasis to something, I would underline, bold, or italicize, and don't overdo it. Next, grammatical errors. If they can't read through the email, then that's really bad. Obviously, we all know that. The fourth thing is that make sure it doesn't look like spam. So when you're reading through the email, don't use so many buzzwords. Don't just use giant words, and make sure that you actually develop a personal connection with people. The last thing is make sure you do not have a clickbait subject. I know that we want to get a lot of clicks, but if you mislead people to believe that your event is something that it's not, then it's going to make a lot of people mad. They're even less likely to sponsor. So that is what I have so far for writing an email. It's kind of the bulk. Mingjie, are you sure we should do questions right now? Because I think it's actually pretty short, the rest of it.
Yeah, so let's run through the entire thing and we'll do all the questions at the end. I know we have quite a bunch of questions. We have like around 10 something questions on the list, but we'll try to address. Stay with us. We'll address it at the end. It's probably a good way to have our viewers online, stay online. So yeah, we'll address some questions at the end. It's not going to be too long towards the end.
Yeah, it should be pretty quick. So here we're just going to talk about some tools I use to manage communication. So first, I use Streak. Streak is great because it's free. It's easy to view the stats. So if you look here, it tells me the date of the last email I sent and the date of the last email I received. It's really easy to use. It's really simple, and it can actually schedule emails. So if you want to make it look like you've been grinding at 4:30 a.m., then you can schedule an email to go out at 4:30 a.m., even if you wrote it at 6 p.m. the day before. So it's just really awesome in that way, and it's completely free. And it's so pretty. Look at this rainbow. It's so pretty. Okay. Next, I also used a bunch of email finders. So first, I would try to use LinkedIn. And if that didn't work, I would go to Rocket Reach. So Rocket Reach, you can see here, this is just a list of Mason Hack Club, Mason Hack leadership. But you can see here that this is what Rocket Reach looks like. And if I just click add here, I'll be able to get all the information that Rocket Reach can find throughout the entire web about them. And oftentimes it's very, very accurate in getting an actual email. But the only thing about Rocket Reach is that it costs money, and actually quite a bit of money. So if that doesn't work for you, Hunter.io is also an awesome thing to use. So if you see here, it'll tell you the actual pattern of the last name of an email, and it'll tell you like it's the first initial and the entire last name at google.com. And then based on that, you can actually email people just simply by guessing. If their name is Bob Smith, you can think it's probably B Smith at google.com. And it makes it a lot easier. So these are two tools I have in Rocket. Both are awesome. So those are our communication tools. Next, let's briefly talk about retaining sponsors. So let's say you successfully get all these sponsors. How are you going to make sure you keep them? Well, it's pretty simple. Make sure you give your sponsors by far the best experience. Sponsor engagement packets are great. Make sure you get them the best placement of sponsored booths. Make sure you get students to interact with sponsors, whether that's through workshops or sponsors sending mentors. Make sure you also have immediate follow-up with after the event with pictures, videos, stats, and an enormous thank you. And if possible, continuously follow up with them. If your school is hosting a tech event, maybe invite them to come speak there. If your hackathon is hosting like smaller things, invite them to come speak there as well. Do they want to maybe host a workshop? You'll get that all out to everybody. So the best way to do this is to not like don't ask them for money in these cases. Just really appreciate that they've done a lot for you, and that maybe you want to continue to get them involved in the community through school events or your club events or future hackathon events. So that's really great to retain sponsors. So yeah, so really quickly, so you're probably wondering a little bit about the sponsor engagement packet. You'll see it right here. I'll actually explain, and I think we can actually link this as long as everybody on the hackathon team's okay with it. But this is what our sponsor packet looked like. So it was called Maximizing Sponsor Value. And what was really great about it was that we went into a lot of depth. It's actually 8 pages long. And it just talks about exactly what's like at what sponsorship levels are things that you should keep in mind to maximize the value. So we talk about branding, swag, mentors, information booths. And I actually gave a lot of information on exactly how to use those information booths to your advantage. So you can assess the students' backgrounds by starting conversation lightly, avoiding heavy technical jargon, teaching them new stuff, making an exciting booth, maximizing the roles of representatives, more information, blah, blah, blah. So all of this stuff is really awesome stuff that they may not necessarily absolutely need, but if they're feeling a little bit nervous about coming to their first hackathon they've ever sponsored, then this is a really great tool for them. So yeah, and then we attached a few pictures of great information booths, and we talk about exactly what makes them great. So yeah, this is actually something we can send out probably or link somewhere. I don't even know. But we highly recommend actually giving these to sponsors. That way you can at least let them know that you're making a very conscious effort to make sure they make the most out of this event, that you don't just want them for their money, that you really want them to interact with students there because the students are so awesome. So that is all I have for Meginar 1.0. I think I'm going to lose my voice tomorrow, but thank you for tuning in, and we can take questions now, Mingjie.
All right. So let's see. We have a total of 10 questions here. Let's start one by one. Kushi, pronunciation challenges. I've been sending emails, but we get no responses, or we are not actually looking to sponsor at this time. How can I get better responses?
So it highly depends on the people you're emailing, and especially when you're in the first stages of stuff. When you're in the first stages, it's going to be really hard to get sponsors because they don't see any legitimacy in your event yet. So the first thing I would do is, if you're partnering with your school, flaunt the fact that you're with your school, that you're with a very legitimate education-based nonprofit. Everybody wants to support schools. It's the big thing these days. So flaunt any nonprofit affiliations. Next, make sure that your narrative is strong enough. Make sure that it is highly specific. If you're just talking about how, like, I want to spread tech because tech is awesome. Like, if it's just that simple, it's very hard to find sponsors, especially if you're in an area where there's a lot of different sponsorship opportunities. So if companies could better, if they feel like they could better use their money elsewhere, they'll put it elsewhere, which is probably a reason why you're getting some no's right now, but also because finances are just a little bit weird. Like, sometimes they like already run out of like a sponsorship budget, but ultimately, like, you should get stronger responses when you make your narrative a lot more convincing. And actually, for anybody who actually tuned into this live stream, you're welcome to message me personally if you want me to look over any narratives that you have going, or like an email. I'll happily do that for you. I'm a little bit busy right now, but I want to thank you all for tuning in. So I'll definitely help out with that. But I would say it's most likely because of your narrative. You want to make sure that it's unique, especially if you come from a big area. Make sure that people know that you're making a real difference and that it's not just like another tech event. Because if it's just another tech event, why would they sponsor you when they could sponsor somebody else who's been running a tech event for longer or has a lot more like credibility behind them? So that's most likely the reason why.
Okay, 2 questions from TechBug 2012, and thank you, Eric, for telling us to black out addresses. I believe someone's address was on the packet. Yeah. And all right, so from TechBug 2012, yeah. So how long does it usually take you to? Don't go back there. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
How long does it usually take for you to write an email? I always find myself spending way longer than I need to spend for relatively short emails because I stress over making them perfect. And a second question might be connected to it. Might not be, but you can answer them together. Do long emails like this have greater impact? My email strategy has been to send short email with the aim of just getting a sponsor over the phone to deliver details. I feel like people would open the email, see that it's super long, and then just not read it. And that's one of my questions too. That's one of my personal questions too, because sometimes writing long emails are not like that efficient to people who are not willing to read emails.
Yeah, so I totally agree there. And the main thing is that, let's see. So my emails are actually, the first one was pretty long. I think it was probably 3 sections, not full paragraphs, probably like 2 or 3 sentences each section, but it was definitely still too long. So I definitely agree there. You don't want long emails. But the problem that you run with short emails is that it looks like you didn't put in enough effort when you were emailing the companies. It feels like you just wrote the email in like 10 minutes and then you just sent it to like everybody you could, especially if it looks generic. So if you're first finding your first few sponsors, I would put in a lot of effort to make those emails very personal. And the way to do that is through longer-ish emails. Short emails are good for when you know that someone's interested and you just want to get them over the phone. But if there are a lot of companies that aren't sure about a hackathon yet, you definitely need to provide a lot more detail. And you need to, I would definitely always mention your narrative, whether it's one sentence or one section. Always mention why you're doing it, because otherwise it honestly just feels like a cold call. Like you're literally just telling them like I need you to do me the favor of getting over the phone with me. Whereas when you actually explain them your narrative and the problem and the solution, it makes it a lot more compelling for them to get on the phone, not because you told them to, but because they actually are really genuinely interested on like, how can I solve this problem that I've seen in my community? So short emails are okay if they can capture everything, but the chances that they can capture everything are pretty low. So I would always opt for going a little bit longer than to cut out any details that you think they might need. And another rule to keep in mind is that this should be an email. They're able to forward out to everybody, and everyone can get a gist of it. So if people don't quite understand what a hackathon is, if people don't understand what a hackathon is, they don't understand what you're going to be doing or why you need money or why it's even a big deal. First off, they're very unlikely to send it on to somebody else who's a decision maker. And second off, it's a chance that even if they send it on to someone who is a decision maker, that decision maker won't find this as necessary to interact with because they don't even know what you're talking about. And they have a lot more sponsorship stuff they could be dealing with. So clarity is always really important.
Okay. Catherine Huang, do you have tips on testing and iterating emails, A/B tests, or just using intuition?
Honestly, I would go with intuition and peer feedback. Especially getting parents to read emails is really good, especially if they're in like a corporate workplace environment. Like my mom works at GE, my dad used to work at Greener Americans. They both worked in like big companies, and they're used to like the whole corporate style. So it's really great to get feedback from people like that, so they can tell you like, oh, this email is too long. Oh, like I can totally tell that you're super passionate. Or they can say like, I can't tell what you're really talking about. Can you be more clear? Or they can say like, this email is way too long and I think you should cut like 90% of it. It's really great to get feedback from people who are the demographics of people who will be reading your emails. In terms of iterating, it's definitely intuition plus that. But also, I would say like over time, as you send this email out more and more and more, you will find more and more issues with it. It's just, I think, human nature that we look at something and we judge it, and then we come back and judge it even more. So the more I looked at my first iteration of emails, the more I was like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. So I fixed it. And then I looked at that one for too long, and then I thought, oh, this is still terrible. And then I fixed that again. So I think it's honestly, it will come to you, but you have to make sure that you're interacting with that email often enough that you actually are making judgments on it on the daily. So for Hack Chicago, I was interacting with these emails like 40 to 50 times a day. I would just be sending out this email again and again and again. And then after a few weeks, I'd realize I don't like this email anymore. So then I'd fix it. So that's kind of how it came to me. Just try interacting with your email every day, even if you're not sending it. Just try taking a look at it. and hopefully it'll make iteration a lot easier.
All right, so next question. I see. Okay, so I'm gonna remove some questions. Oh God, noise. Sorry. I'm gonna remove some questions just because we address it later after you ask the question, because I know it's been a long time since we addressed the last wave of questions. I'm gonna continue on from Ella. For calls with sponsors, do you mean video calls or phone calls? Which works better?
So most of the time I just leave it at call, and then most of the time they will either tell me like, hey, can you schedule a video call, or like, can you schedule a Hangouts call, or they'll send me a link to a Skype or a Zoom or something. A lot of them have their own corporate protocol that they follow for video conferencing. So if they just want to do that, it's often a lot easier for them to figure out a time they're available and then just send you an invitation, assuming that you're available. So if you get the choice to schedule a call, I would do, let me think. Honestly, I think either of them are fine. Either of them are fine. I think probably phone calls safest, because most of the time phone calls work, whereas with Hangouts, like, you might get some issues with Chrome or your browser doesn't work or they can't find the link. So I would schedule a phone call if it's up to you. But like, if you're on minutes, or if like you don't have their phone number, or you feel like it'd be weird to like call them, then video calls are perfectly fine. I don't particularly see how one is better than the other.
All right, next question. What happens if this is your first time and don't have previous successes?
Wait, can you repeat the question?
From Angus, what happens if this is your first time and don't have any previous successes?
Yeah, so that is an awesome question. That's kind of where we were when Mason Hack Club first started. And the first thing you need to do is reach out. So warm introductions are the absolutely first thing. If your advisor knows anybody at a company, maybe that company doesn't want to sponsor, you want to get their support, because once you get their support, they can redirect you to even more people. It's difficult starting from the bottom, but I would say, first off, if it's your first time but it's not your team's first time, like if anybody on your team has had any successes, anything related to technology, whether you ran a camp, you ran a volunteering activity, you taught code, you TA'd in a class, any of those things I think are worthy of potentially mentioning, as long as they're not like too minimal. And starting from the bottom, Mason Hack Club was pretty lucky, because our sponsor was actually our advisor was the employee of Cengage Learning, and Cengage Learning is really excited about what we're doing. So I would say to reach out to local companies first that are large, hopefully, and getting their support, especially if they're not like a huge company, but they're just trying to get out there. So in general, companies that I think would be interested are rapidly growing technology companies, education companies, even local nonprofits getting their support. Maybe they won't sponsor money, but if you have their name, like Women Who Code in Chicago reached out to us, and they were a really great asset for us when we were reaching out to like other people, because Women Who Code is a very strong organization, even though they didn't give us any money because they're a nonprofit and like they have their own budget set aside and we didn't expect it. Just having their name along with ours was really great for getting sponsors. And ultimately, just remember that previous successes are good, but ultimately they don't judge your character based on your previous successes. They judge your character based on how you interact with them on calls and how your email is. So as long as you write a killer email, I think you will be absolutely fine. You just need to develop that narrative very clearly, and just really believe in your own ability to execute this event, and I think you'll be fine.
All right, so next one, I have from Surya D. How many companies should you contact? My friends contacted around 200 and got few to no responses. Should I email more than 300?
So here's the thing. Hack Chicago, I probably emailed around 100 companies. Is that right? I think that's about right. Yeah, 100 companies sounds about right. And honestly, how it works is that your email just has to be good. For Cincy Hacks, we emailed I think 70 companies and we got 2 responses, which was really bad. And then here I emailed around 100 companies and I got like 20, 30 responses. So it's all about creating a really great narrative and portraying that really well within a really well-written email. Because at the end of the day, it's not that like out of the 200 companies, all 200 of them just didn't even open their email. It's that they opened it and didn't feel compelled to respond, which is a completely different problem than just emailing more companies. When you're in the starting phases, a number game isn't necessarily what you want to be focusing on. You want to be focusing on creating a really, really, really good email and then sending it out to companies. The more email you have, the more likely they are to respond. And emailing more companies doesn't necessarily guarantee that more companies are going to respond. Once you have a really great email and you start getting that flow, you start getting responses from companies, you have a really great email already, then that's when I would start emailing even more companies because you know that your email template is good. If you're not sure about it, just do a test batch, see how people respond. And if you don't think it's good after a few weeks, change it and try again. Honestly, it's like exponential growth. Like it's super hard to get your first sponsor. And after that, it just gets way, 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 way easier. And like we just started having people reaching out to us to sponsor. So yeah, a well-written email is above everything. And I honestly wouldn't overwhelm yourself with emailing 300 different companies because you want to focus on the companies that are really actually genuinely interested. Otherwise, if like you only have 50 companies you think are really actually interested, I would spend the amount of time you would spend emailing the rest of the 250 companies, writing and revising and getting feedback. Oh my gosh, getting feedback on your email draft before you send it out. And once again, I'm happy to look over anything like that for you. But especially when you're in the starting stages, focus your effort on writing a really good email. And then once the email's great, then start going crazy with the companies.
All right. I'm really sorry for the notification from my side, guys. And all right. And next question. At what point can an email look inauthentic or superficial? From Vahan. Vahan probably left just now, but you can still answer the question and you have the replay stuff.
Wait, what?
Oh, Vahan just left. Oh, whatever. Yeah, I was just saying that Vahan just left the I believe, just left the stream, but we can have the question answered on the replay.
Okay, yeah, sounds good. So when does something look superficial? Well, it looks superficial when you start using words in contexts that don't make sense. So if I say that it's a magnificent technology event, that just looks really weird. And once there's too many weird places, it starts to look like you just use a thesaurus or just ask your smart friend to just give you some great words without really knowing how to pull it all together. So I would opt for diction that you are comfortable with. And that's how you keep it authentic, when you keep it conversational. If you can conversationally use big words, that's totally natural. Then I would go for it because it increases the amount of like authority that you have. People will know that you're a smart person and that you're capable of running a great event. But if you don't typically use giant words, I would not use it because it's really clear to see when somebody's just using a bunch of buzzwords. And remember that this is the corporate setting. People get buzzwords all the time. Like it's very easy to identify them once you've seen them enough times. So if you start using them, you lose that youthfulness, you lose that authenticity that you used to have because now it seems like you're becoming a corporate robot. So yeah, definitely also making it personal about you is how you keep it authentic as well. If you don't mention anything about yourself or about like why something is important to you, then it comes off as inauthentic because it's like there's no direct connection to you. Why would you even be involved in the first place? So having some sort of personal connection, saying that I'm involved because I'm excited about this is the mission, then that's already enough to make sure that people know that you are heavily invested in this.
All right, next question. From Kushi, 2 questions next. Is it better to find contacts or local branches or headquarters of a company? And what types of companies should we reach out to?
Wait, local branches of what?
Is it better to reach out to local branches or like headquarters of a corporate company? Or and what type of companies should we reach out to?
Okay, so I would always start with the local branch, especially if they're like not tiny. So with Cengage, how they first got involved with us is that our sponsor, or not our sponsor, our advisor works at the Mason office of Cengage. And we actually first really got involved at the Mason level with them. And then they ended up spreading it to their headquarters, and then their headquarters decided to sponsor an event. So start locally and try to get them involved earlier than the hackathon like search. Unfortunately, probably a lot of people are already well into that search, so it's totally fine, but start local, and that way they'll have a lot more context on why something is super necessary. Like if I email a company in San Francisco telling them that like CS education is not enough, it's really not compelling because it's like over there, it's super rampant. Everybody's doing CS at some point. So you want to make sure that you can maintain that context. You can maintain just the general idea behind why you're hosting an event and why it's so significant for your community. And that's most easy with a local branch. If the local branch doesn't respond, connect with headquarters. That's what I'd say. And try to always get somebody who's representative of your region. So if there's headquarters employees that are somewhat within the Midwest region, for me at least, then I'll contact them. Outside of that, if that doesn't work, go straight to headquarters.
Oh, there's another question just now. Oh wait, there was two questions, and oh wait, never mind. All right, now this is the delayed question that you had earlier. What type of tone do you want to set when you introduce yourself to a sponsor? I think that you addressed in your early speeches, but you can, if you want to elaborate on that.
Yeah, just in general, I'd say the three most important things are authenticity, the fact that like you are really dedicated and motivated and driven and will do anything to make an event happen, and having a huge amount of potential, being smart in general, and having the ability to grow. Those are the three most important things you want to portray, and it may not be possible to portray all of them within an email, and that's okay. The most important thing is being authentic and making people like you, because then if they like you, they're more likely to respond.
All right, and here comes to our last question, delayed from the first batch of questions, about your hack camp.
Oh yeah, so hack camp. Mingjie, we should totally run another webinar on hack camps.
Yeah.
But anyways, just a brief overview. Pretty much hack camp is a summer coding camp that Mason Hack Club runs over here. It's for 6th through 9th graders, and we typically get around 80 to 100 attendees. So we didn't just finish. In July, we did our second annual hack camp. So we've done 2017 and 2018. And typically we raise around $12,000 each. And then we spend around $3,000 to $4,000 getting swag for all of the attendees, and on snacks for them, and on prizes for them. So it's we charge a higher rate than other camps around us. Like I know that there's a robotics camp around us, and then there's also like other for-profit camps. But what we really like to highlight is that we will teach you how to code from scratch, and you'll be able to walk home with something. And that also, like we provide a bunch of awesome swag, and that we also like to flaunt our stats, because so far our stats from the people who respond to our surveys, at least 100% from 2018, 100% of attendees would recommend Hack Camp to a friend. So it's really exciting, and we're probably going to run a separate webinar on that. But if you're interested in Hack Camp, just let like Mingjie or I know, so that way we can run a webinar as soon as possible, because it has been pretty much our only source of income for the past 2 years, for the past like year and a half. We did do a few smaller fundraisers at the beginning, and then Cengage gave us a seed fund of $1,000 to get started. And then after that, we just ran a camp at the Cengage facility. It's called Hack Camp. We ran it at Cengage facilities. Now we have around 20,000 in the bank, all because of those camps. And people come back a lot. So it's pretty exciting. And yeah.
Yep. So on camps, I heard Megan had a great time organizing and all that, and she's like really tired. You said you were really tired on these, but I think it's a really great way to actually get the brand of your club out to the community. And if you do you have the time and energy and you have the resource to run these, definitely do so. And if you're really interested in knowing how to run it, I can definitely set up another webinar and let's try to talk about it later. And that was our last question. Does anyone have any follow-up questions? We're gonna wait for like around 2 minutes here. Wait, actually, we have. Whoa, we were aiming for an hour and we ran like an hour. This is almost 2 hours now. It was
my presentation was too long.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone who has been who has been on here for the entire 2 hours. Like everyone who has joined us for during the 2 hours, you guys are amazing, and the questions are really great though.
Yeah,
it covered a lot of things that we didn't think of when we were trying to organize this thing, and yeah.
Thank you everybody for coming on, and I hope you at least learned something. I know it's super long. Sorry about that. I really hope that you learned something and that we can get some more high school hackathons going on, especially around here. That would be awesome because then I could go to them. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to message me. Yeah, I have priority. So excited to like look over awesome emails and craft narratives and stuff because like there's so much awesome potential here, and narratives are, we should craft great narratives. So I will look over people's emails. I'm sure Mingjie would love to look over a few emails as well.
And yeah, so I will regarding the packet, the sponsorship packet, the sponsors packet that we referred to earlier. We're going to make a few changes to the packet itself because it contains some confidential information, and we're going to be releasing it in Slack. Probably by tomorrow when we finish modifying it, and we'll probably ping it into a central message of follow-ups for Meginar, and we will, just look it up there. If you're not in the Hackup Stack yet, advertisement, link in the description. Wait, actually, link in the chat. Yep, and also really thanks to I forgot who it was. I think it was Angus. Yeah, Angus was making this amazing notes during this event. He took like, let's see. This is the first time I opened up this document. Wow, that's a lot of So yep, thanks. Really, a lot of thanks to Angus for taking these notes. We're going to be sharing these notes to you guys later. If you guys need anything from us, definitely feel free to reach out to me at Mingjie on Slack and at Megan on Slack too. We have time to answer. We're pretty busy people, but we can definitely answer your questions later on.
Yeah. Cool.
That's really organized, and also we can share the slides too if we. Angus actually took screenshots of the slide. We can actually just directly release the slides after this when we finish like working on it and make some little changes to it. And let's see if YouTube allows us to put it out online. We can stay here for 5 more minutes. If you have more questions, feel free to ask. We're gonna stay here and stare at each other weirdly for 5 minutes.
Regularly, yeah.
Whatever.
Okay. We'll get off at 10.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all are free to leave. And this is so exciting. No.
Hey, and advertisement for tomorrow. We have Hack Night every week in Slack. If you're able to make it at 8 p.m., whatever, 7 p.m., whatever you're online, whatever time zone you are at. I know it's probably a bit hard for people from the other side of the world, but if you can make it online, definitely start a call in channel Hack Night, and we will be joining this Hack Night and get it hacking. It's like a really fun time for Hack Up and members to chat with each other. Last week we shared life stories. If you want to join us this week, You're welcome to.
Everybody come appreciate my cat. He's so cute. Wait, no.
Yeah, cat time.
Wait,
Cat
no.
time.
Look how cute he is. I love my cat so much. He's so
This is the
cute.
Hack Chicago official cat. We attached him in a couple of our emails, and which is a great way to get sponsors' attention. Yeah, so yeah, if you want to get your sponsors' attention, include a cat in your email and write cat included. Make sure you had the parentheses after the subject line. You said cat included in your subject line and send it to your sponsors. It will increase their open rate of the email. Megan is watching herself on Slack in a live stream. Watching yourself in a live stream.
It's so weird.
Let's see what else we have. We have a lot of people talking on Slack with lunch, which is basically the entire chat talking about the event. Lots of love. We should share it to more people next time. We have a peak of 30 something people, 35, 37, I forgot, up there, and we dropped back down because it's getting pretty late, and I know it's pretty tiring for people to stare at the screen for like for a few hours. I'm actually pretty tired too. Like I have to glance through a couple screens on my screen. High school innovation opportunity, cat included.
How do you still have 8 watchers?
The 8 people, the 8 of you. Okay, you know those when you play HQ, and you have those people that stays until the last second of the music, when the host signed up, and there's a music like there's just 20-second music. There's those people that stay at the last second of the music and be like, I'm the last comment, guys. Ooh. Yeah, anyways, you better be the one staying there.
Don't. He needs to sleep. I need to sleep.
Everyone needs to sleep. We had a great day today. My school hasn't even started yet.
Oh yeah, that's why you're up at like 3 a.m. every single day. Yeah, no, you already started.
And I still haven't started my homework yet. I need to do some more on this. Welcome to the weird time of the day where Mingjie and Megan chat for no reason on live stream on YouTube.
La 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 la.
We have 7 people now. We have successfully convinced someone to go to sleep.
No, it was 6 and now it's 7.
Oof. Did you open your? Wait, I think it's you opening your. Wait, never mind. We have a lot of people. Take a nap? You better go to sleep. I need to take a nap. Oof. Our school starts after Labor Day. Maryland's education system is actually really weird. They said Maryland already has a tiny bit of holidays. They restricted the number of hours we stay in school to a very, very, very unreachable amount, and then our county has to cut down the amount of holidays. Now our spring break is like 3 to 5 days. I mean, like depending on how many snow days I have. Ooh. Ting, ting, ting. Please appreciate this. 1 more minute. Time to spam the chat.
This is so tragic.
Let me give it a dislike. The dislike was there.
Yeah.
The dislike was there since like the first 5 minutes of the stream.
Oh no.
I hope our work is appreciated. I hope we can get Zach on board next time. Hey, Zach. Shout out to Zach if you're watching here. Assuming you're not. Zach, let's get you involved next time.
Why do we have 8 watching now? It just went up.
Just went up. People just start searching. All right, we need to hop off. I guess we need some sleep too. We'll talk to you later on Slack. Not on Zach. On Slack. We'll talk to you. Yeah, we'll talk to you on Slack. Send questions to us. DM us. Whatever you want to do. Megan's phone number is even on the screen. You can just probably text her, send her, whatever. Hey, so it's been a great day. It's been a great 2 hours spending with you guys. And follow us on Twitter. Follow us on Facebook. At Hack Club on Twitter. At Start Hack Club on Instagram. Hack Club Facebook page. We don't have any name yet, but we're getting one. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. We will be posting periodic updates, Hack Club HQ updates on YouTube. They're supposed to be monthly, but we kind of work out.
Going up.
Wait, what? 7 watching. All right, it's 7 people. There's 7 of you. Thank you for watching. I think one is me, yeah. One is you. So the 5 of you, thanks for watching. Thanks for staying with us until like this late. It's not late for you guys in California, but okay.
See you all.
See you all. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Megan, don't hang up.